The space station hung in orbit around a gray moon. It was massive, made of glass and metal that reflected the light from distant stars. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every day. Inside its halls, powerful beings made decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. This was the Galactic Council Station, and it was the center of everything important in known space. Daehyun walked through the long corridor toward the council chamber. His shoes made soft sounds on the polished floor. He wore a simple gray suit with a small Earth flag pin on his collar. Nothing fancy, nothing that made people look twice at him. Other ambassadors passed him in the hallway. They were tall, short, covered in scales or glowing with strange light. Some floated above the ground. Others walked on 6 legs. Each one looked important and powerful in their own way. None of them looked at Daehyun. He was just another human. Just another face in the crowd. That was exactly what he wanted. He entered the council chamber and took his seat near the back. The room was circular with seats rising up in tiers like an ancient arena. At the center was a platform where speakers addressed the council. Hundreds of beings filled the seats representing their worlds and empires. Yunwoo, the ambassador from the Krellian Dominion, sat several rows above Daehyun. The Krellians looked almost human, but stood 8 feet tall with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Hyunwoo was speaking with his aide, a younger Krellian named Ji-young. The human, Hyunwoo said, loud enough for others to hear. I forget he's even here most days. His people have nothing of value. No strong military, no advanced technology, just a few colony worlds that barely survive. Ji-young nodded as she looked at her data tablet. Their records show only small conflicts in their past. Primitive weapons, chemical explosives and metal bullets. They asked to join the Commerce Guild last month, but I doubt anyone will vote yes. Why would we? Hyunwoo laughed. It was not a kind sound. Perhaps we should be grateful they're so harmless. The galaxy has enough war already. Daehyun heard every word. His face showed nothing. He simply smiled politely and looked at his own tablet, reading through trade agreements and shipping regulations like they were the most interesting things in the universe. The council session began. Various ambassadors stood and spoke about tariffs, trade routes, and territorial disputes. Daehyun listened carefully to everything but said nothing. When someone mentioned Earth, they spoke about humans like they were children learning to walk among giants. 3 hours into the session, an emergency message came through. Every tablet in the room buzzed at once. Daehyun looked at his screen and read the words that appeared there. Colony World Epsilon 7 under attack. Phyrexian forces. Casualizations estimated at 14,000. Requesting immediate assistance. His jaw tightened for just a moment. Then his face returned to that same calm expression. He stood up slowly, gathering his things. Ambassador Daehyun? The council speaker called out. Is something wrong? My apologies, Daehyun said in a quiet voice. I need to step out. Family emergency. He walked out of the chamber. Behind him he heard whispers and murmurs. The Phyrexian Empire had attacked a human colony. Everyone knew what that meant. The Phyrexians were predators, one of the most aggressive species in the council. They followed the unwritten rules, though. They only attacked weak species that couldn't fight back. Humans couldn't fight back. Everyone knew that. Hyunwoo watched Daehyun leave. Strange, he said to Ji-young. I expected tears, anger, begging for help. Perhaps humans don't feel emotions the same way we do, Ji-young suggested. Or perhaps they simply accept their place. The weak always fall to the strong. That's nature. The council issued a formal statement. They condemned the Phyrexian attack. They would fine the Phyrexian Empire a small amount of money. Life would go on. That's what everyone expected. 2 days passed. Daehyun did not return to the council. No one worried about it. The human was dealing with his tragedy. He would come back eventually, probably asking for aid, for protection, for mercy. Then the news came. The Phyrexian fleet was gone. All 17 warships, destroyed. Search and rescue teams found debris floating in space where the fleet had been. Every ship had been torn apart. The damage was precise, surgical. Someone had known exactly where to strike to cause maximum destruction. The Phyrexian crews were all dead. There were no survivors to question. The technology used in the attack was unknown. The weapons that destroyed those ships didn't match anything in the Council's databases. The Council chamber exploded with panic and confusion when the report came in. Ambassadors shouted questions. Who did this? How was it possible? The Vrexians had powerful shields and weapons. Their ships were among the best in the galaxy, yet something had destroyed them completely in less than 48 hours. Dae-hyun returned to the council that afternoon. He walked in calmly, carrying his tablet. He wore the same gray suit, the same polite smile on his face. He took his seat and waited for the session to begin. Hyunwoo stared at him from across the chamber. The human looked exactly the same as always. Unremarkable, average, harmless. But Hyunwoo felt something cold in his stomach. A whisper of doubt. A question he didn't want to ask. When the council speaker called for reports on the Vrexian incident, Dae-hyun raised his hand. Ambassador Dae-hyun, the speaker said, do you have information about what happened? I do, Dae-hyun said calmly. Earth responded to the attack on our colony. We eliminated the threat. The matter is closed. Silence filled the chamber. You could have heard a pin drop. You destroyed the Vrexian fleet, the speaker asked slowly. Yes. How? Dae-hyun smiled that same polite smile. We have our methods, no one knew what to say. The human sat there calm and quiet, like he had just reported the weather instead of the destruction of 17 warships. Hyunwoo left the chamber early that day. He went straight to his office and pulled up every file he could find on Earth, on humans, on their history and their capabilities. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth had spent centuries at war. Humans had fought each other with terrible weapons. They had created bombs that could destroy entire cities. They had used poison gas and biological weapons. They had killed millions of their own kind before finally achieving peace. And in all that time, they had been developing weapons, studying war, learning how to fight and survive against impossible odds. Hyunwoo found references to something called the Solar Defense Initiative. It had been founded 50 years ago, long before humans had faster-than-light travel. They had been preparing for war with aliens before they ever met any aliens. What kind of species did that? He tried to access Dae-hyun's personal file. Most of it was locked, covered in black bars and security restrictions. But he could see a few things. Military service, special operations, something called Group 7, and one word highlighted in red, Reaper. Hyunwoo didn't know what it meant, but the word made him uncomfortable in a way he couldn't explain. Back in the council chamber, other ambassadors were asking Dae-hyun questions. He answered them politely but revealed nothing useful. Yes, Earth had defensive capabilities. No, he couldn't share technical details. Yes, they would prefer peace to war. But everyone heard what he didn't say. Everyone understood the message underneath his polite words. Humans were not harmless. Humans were not weak. And the galaxy had made a terrible mistake in thinking. Otherwise, Dae-hyun finished answering questions and sat back down. He looked at his tablet and started reading through trade agreements again, like nothing important had happened. Like he hadn't just announced that his species had destroyed 17 warships with ease. Around him, ambassadors whispered nervously. They looked at the human with new eyes, with fear, with respect, with questions they were afraid to ask. The unremarkable man in the gray suit continued his work and no one forgot his face again. 3 weeks had passed since the Vrexian fleet disappeared. The Galactic Council was still trying to understand what had happened. Various committees met in secret. Intelligence agencies from a dozen worlds worked to gather information about Earth and its capabilities. Everyone moved carefully around the humans now. When Dae-hyun spoke at council sessions, people listened. When he suggested changes to trade agreements, they were approved without argument. The unremarkable human had become someone very remarkable indeed. But no one knew the truth yet. They suspected humans were more dangerous than they appeared, but suspicion and knowledge were very different things. High Commander Sang-min of the Krellian Dominion military sat in his private office. The room was dark except for the glow of holographic displays floating in the air around him. Each display showed information about the Vrexian incident. His chief analyst, Bo-ra, stood beside him. She was younger than Sang-min, with sharp eyes and a mind that missed nothing. She had been investigating Earth for weeks now. "Show me the weapon signatures again," Sang-min said. Bo-ra waved her hand and the holograms changed. Now they showed the wreckage of the Vrexian ships in detail. Scorch marks, hull breaches, the twisted metal where explosions had torn through armor. "The weapon signatures don't match anything in our database," Bo-ra explained. "The energy readings suggest plasma weapons, but at temperatures we didn't think were possible to generate in space. And look at these impact points. She highlighted several spots on different ships. Each one glowed red in the hologram. Every strike hit a reactor core or a weapon system. Perfect accuracy across 17 ships spread across thousands of kilometers of space. This wasn't lucky. This was professional. Sang-min leaned back in his chair. Could it have been one of the other council species? Someone using the humans as a cover? I thought of that, Bora said. But I checked the sensor logs from nearby systems. There were human ships in the area. Small ones, moving fast. Our sensors barely detected them, and only after I knew what to look for. Stealth technology? More advanced than anything we have. And their speed. She pulled up more data. Commander, these ships were moving at velocities that should have torn them apart. Either humans have solved problems with inertial dampening that we haven't, or they've been hiding their technology level from us since first contact. Sang-min stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the council station stretching away in both directions. Thousands of beings lived and worked here. It was supposed to be the safest place in the galaxy. Now he wondered if that was true. Tell me about Earth, he said quietly. Bora pulled up a new hologram. It showed a blue and green planet beautiful from space. But as the image zoomed in, Sang-min could see scars. Dead zones where nothing grew. Craters from ancient weapons. The planet had been hurt badly at some point in its past. Earth is a death world, Bora began. High gravity. Dangerous weather. Toxic plants and predatory animals. Humans evolved to survive in one of the most hostile environments we've ever studied. Many species come from difficult worlds, Sang-min said. Yes, but most of those species worked together to survive. Humans did something different. She changed the image to show historical data. They spent thousands of years fighting each other. Wars that killed millions. They invented terrible weapons and used them on their own kind. Chemical weapons that melted flesh. Biological weapons that spread disease. Nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Sang-min felt cold. And they used all of these? Yes, multiple times. There are still places on Earth that are too contaminated for humans to live. Bora's voice was grim. But here's what makes it worse, Commander. They didn't stop fighting because they evolved past violence. They didn't achieve peace through wisdom or enlightenment. They achieved peace through exhaustion. What do you mean? They fought until they couldn't fight anymore. Until they had killed so many of each other that continuing was pointless. Then and only then did they unify. And the moment they unified, they looked up at the stars and started preparing for the next war. She pulled up another document. I found records of something called the Solar Defense Initiative. It was founded 50 years ago when humans were still using primitive chemical rockets. Before they had faster-than-light travel. Before they met any alien species at all. They were preparing to fight us before they knew we existed? Exactly. Humans assumed that anyone they met in space would be hostile, so they built weapons. They trained soldiers. They created entire military doctrines based on fighting enemies more advanced than themselves. Bora looked at him seriously. Every other species achieved peace first, then went to the stars. Humans went to the stars to find new places to fight. Sang-min returned to his desk and sat down heavily. What about Dae-hyun? He's just a diplomat. That's what I thought too. Bora pulled up a new file. Most of it was covered in black bars. Information that had been hidden or deleted. His military record is almost completely redacted. I can only see fragments. But those fragments tell a story. She highlighted certain sections. He served in Special Operations Group 7. I found references to operations on 4 different continents during Earth's unification wars. The casualty counts, she paused. Thousands of enemy soldiers killed. Cities captured. Governments toppled. All by a unit of less than 50 people. 50 soldiers did that? According to the fragments I could read, yes. They specialized in what humans call asymmetric warfare. Fighting when you're outnumbered and outgunned. Using stealth, deception, and precise violence to achieve objectives that would normally require armies. Sang-min stared at the redacted file. So much information was hidden. What didn't they want anyone to know? Then he saw it. One word barely visible at the bottom of a document. Reaper, what does that mean? He asked, pointing. Bora had been waiting for that question. I don't know for certain. It could be a code name, a unit designation, or a nickname. But I did some research into human language and culture. A reaper is something that harvests. In human mythology, there's a being called the Grim Reaper. It's death personified. The thing that comes to collect souls when people die. The office felt very cold suddenly. Dae-hyun was 23 years old when he joined this unit. Bo-ra continued. He's 57 now. That means he spent over 30 years in military service before becoming a diplomat. That's longer than most soldiers serve in their entire careers. And for 15 of those years, there's almost no information, Sang-min observed, looking at the gaps in the file. Exactly. Whatever he was doing during that time, Earth doesn't want anyone to know about it. Sang-min closed the files and looked at Bo-ra. What's your assessment? Are humans a threat to the Council? Bo-ra chose her words carefully. I think humans are what they've always been. Survivors. They'll do whatever it takes to protect themselves. If we treat them with respect, they'll be valuable allies. But if we threaten them, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Find out everything you can about their military, Sang-min ordered. Ship types, weapons technology, troop numbers. I want to know what we're dealing with. Yes, Commander. Bo-ra turned to leave, then paused. Sir, there's one more thing. I've been monitoring communications from the station. Human workers have been getting hired for maintenance and service positions over the past few months. Cleaning crews, technical staff, that sort of thing. So there are now 43 humans working in various departments across the station. Security, communications, life support, power systems. They're everywhere and no one pays attention to them because they're just janitors and technicians. Sang-min felt his stomach drop. You think they're spies? I think humans are very good at being underestimated. And I think having people in every critical system of this station would be very useful if you ever needed to take control of it. After Bo-ra left, Sang-min sat alone in his dark office. He pulled up an image of Dae-hyun from the council database. The human smiled pleasantly in his identification photo. He looked like a friendly grandfather, not a soldier. Certainly not someone called the Reaper. But Sang-min had been a military officer for 40 years. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets in 12 battles. He knew what dangerous looked like, even when it hid behind a smile. He sent a priority message to his counterparts in other militaries. They needed to talk about Earth, about humans, about what to do if these newcomers decided they wanted more than just membership in the Council. The responses came back within hours. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Everyone was worried. A meeting was scheduled for the following week. Military commanders from the 5 major powers would gather to discuss the human situation. But they would be too late. Events were already in motion that would change everything. Sang-min didn't know it yet, but the Galactic Council was about to make the worst mistake in its long history. They were about to push humanity too far, and they were about to learn what the word Reaper really meant. The meeting room was small and private, tucked away in a quiet corner of the council station. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat at the head of a long table. His aide Yoonji stood behind him with her data tablet ready. Across from them sat Ambassador Dae-hyun, alone, with nothing but a cup of tea in front of him. 3 months had passed since the Vrexian incident. The council had spent that time talking, debating, and arguing. They had finally made a decision about Earth and its place in the galaxy. It was not a kind decision. Hyunwoo cleared his throat. Thank you for meeting with me, Ambassador Dae-hyun. I have important matters to discuss. Dae-hyun sipped his tea. Of course. I'm always happy to talk. The Galactic Council has reviewed humanity's petition for full membership, Hyunwoo began. He kept his voice formal and cold. We have concerns about your species, your military capabilities, your aggressive nature, the incident with the Vrexian fleet. We defended ourselves, Dae-hyun said calmly. They attacked our colony. We responded. You destroyed 17 warships. That's not defense. That's overwhelming force. Hyunwoo leaned forward. The Council believes humanity poses a potential threat to galactic stability. However, we are willing to offer you a path forward. How generous, Dae-hyun said. His face showed nothing, but something in his eyes changed. Yoonji noticed it and felt a chill run down her spine. Hyunwoo didn't notice. He continued with confidence. These are our terms. First, Earth will surrender control of the Terra Nova wormhole to the Council. It will be administered by neutral parties for the benefit of all species. Dae-hyun said nothing. He just listened. Second, you will limit your military to no more than 50 ships, frigate class or smaller. No battleships. No carriers. No weapons platforms. Still, Dae-hyun remained silent. Third, you will allow Council inspection teams full access to Earth and all human colonies. They will verify compliance with galactic weapons treaties. No exceptions. Yunwu paused for effect before delivering the final term. And fourth, you will hand over whoever destroyed the Vrexian fleet to stand trial for war crimes. The use of excessive force cannot be tolerated in civilized space. The room was very quiet. Daehyun set down his cup of tea. The sound of ceramic on metal seemed very loud. No, he said simply. Hyunwoo blinked. I don't think you understand the situation. Oh, I understand perfectly. Daehyun stood up slowly. You see humanity as weak. You think because we've been polite, because we've followed your rules, that you can dictate terms to us. You think we're afraid of you? He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. You've made a very serious miscalculation, Ambassador. Is that a threat? Hyunwoo's voice carried anger now. No, it's a fact. Daehyun's expression remained calm, but his voice dropped lower. You asked me to hand over whoever destroyed the Vrexian fleet. That was me. The words hung in the air like smoke. Yoonji's tablet slipped from her hands and clattered on the floor. She stared at the human diplomat, unable to speak. Hyunwoo's face went pale. That's impossible. You're a diplomat. Ambassadors don't fly combat missions. I'm a soldier who became a diplomat because my government needed one. Daehyun interrupted. I flew a fighter that day. I marked targets. I watched 17 ships burn because they killed 14,000 colonists, including children. And I would do it again without hesitation. The council will respond to this threat, Hyunwoo managed to say. Daehyun walked back to the table. He placed both hands on its surface and leaned forward, looking directly into Hyunwoo's eyes. Then let me be very clear about what will happen if you move against humanity. You won't face some small defense force. You'll face the Solar Defense Fleet. Ships we've been building in secret for 50 years. Ships designed specifically to fight enemies more advanced than us. You'll face soldiers who have trained for interstellar war since before we ever left our solar system. We have fleets, Hyunwoo said, but his voice shook. We have millions of troops, hundreds of worlds, and we have something you don't, Daehyun said quietly. We have experience fighting when we're outnumbered, when we're outgunned, when the odds say we should lose. Humans don't surrender, Ambassador. We adapt, we learn. We find ways to win that you never expect because you've been fighting ceremonial wars for so long you've forgotten what real war looks like. Eunji found her voice. What are you talking about? Daehyun glanced at her. On Earth, before we unified, our nations created special soldiers for the worst kinds of warfare. Deep penetration missions, assassination, sabotage, psychological warfare. We trained them to walk into impossible situations and succeed through skill, cunning, and ruthlessness. He straightened up. I was one of those soldiers. We called ourselves Reapers because we harvested lives. We went places armies couldn't go and did things armies couldn't do. When Earth unified, they didn't need us anymore. So they made us into diplomats and sent us to the stars, hoping the galaxy would never see what we could really do. You're bluffing, Hyunwoo said weakly. Am I? Daehyun buttoned his jacket. You have 48 hours to withdraw your ultimatum. Tell the council that threatening Earth was a mistake. Make whatever excuse you want. I don't care. And if we don't, then I resign my diplomatic credentials and go back to my old job. Daehyun walked to the door one final time. And, Ambassador, I promise you don't want that. You really don't. The door slid shut behind him. Yoonji rushed to pick up her tablet with shaking hands. What do we do? She whispered. Hyunwoo sat frozen in his chair. His mind was racing. Could the human be telling the truth? Was it possible that this quiet, polite diplomat was really a trained killer? That humanity had been hiding its true strength all along? Get me High Commander Sang-min, Hyunwoo finally said. Immediately. An hour later, Sang-min arrived with Bo-Ra. They listened to Hyunwoo's account of the meeting in grim silence. He admitted to destroying the Vrexian fleet? Sang-min asked. Yes. He said it like he was discussing the weather. No emotion. No hesitation. Hyunwoo looked haunted. I've been a diplomat for 30 years. I've negotiated with warlords and dictators. I've never met anyone like him. Bo-Ra was already pulling up files on her tablet. Commander, I found something. I've been digging into Earth's history more deeply. There are references to special operations units during their unification wars. Most of the information is deleted or classified, but I found casualty reports. She displayed the numbers. They were staggering. In one operation, a team of 12 human soldiers eliminated an entire military base. 200 enemy troops dead. The human team had 0 casualties. She scrolled through more data. Another operation. 6 humans captured a city of 40,000 people by taking control of its infrastructure and holding the population hostage until the government surrendered. That's impossible, Hyunwoo said. It happened multiple times, Bo-ra replied. These units operated during Earth's darkest period. They were feared by everyone, even their own people. The few records that survived call them nightmares made flesh, and the most feared unit of all was designated Reaper. Sang-min felt ice in his veins. Is Dae-hyun really one of them? I can't prove it. The records are too fragmented. But the timeline matches. His age, his military service, and there's one more thing. Bo-ra pulled up a final document. I found a news article from Earth published 20 years ago. It's about the Unification Wars. There's a quote from a general who fought in those conflicts. She read it aloud. When asked about the Special Operations Units, the general said, I thank the stars every day that those men and women are on our side. Because if they weren't, we would all be dead, the Reapers especially. They could end governments, topple armies, and walk away like ghosts. We never knew their real names. We only knew what they left behind. The room was silent. So what do we do? Ji asked quietly. Sang-min stood and walked to the window. Outside, the station bustled with activity. Thousands of beings going about their lives unaware of the crisis developing. We have 2 choices, he said finally. We can back down and withdraw the ultimatum. Admit we made a mistake and try to build a better relationship with humanity. Or, Hyunwoo asked, or we call their bluff. We commit our forces and test whether humans are really as dangerous as they claim. Sang-min turned back to face them. But if we choose that path, we need to be absolutely certain we can win. Because if we're wrong, if Dae-hyun is telling the truth, then we'll be starting a war with an enemy that has been preparing for this moment for half a century. The council won't back down, Hyunwoo said bitterly. They'll see it as weakness. The hegemony coalition has too much pride. Bo-ra looked up from her tablet, her face pale. Then we're going to war, Sang-min nodded slowly. Send word to all military commanders. Full mobilization. If we're doing this, we do it with overwhelming force. No half measures. As they left to carry out his orders, Sang-min remained by the window. Somewhere on this station, Dae-hyun was probably having tea, smiling politely, looking like someone's friendly grandfather. But Sang-min knew the truth now. That pleasant smile hid something dark, something lethal, something that had survived Earth's bloodiest wars and learned to kill with precision and efficiency. The council was about to poke a sleeping predator with a stick, and Sang-min had a terrible feeling they were all going to regret it. 48 hours passed. The Galactic Council did not withdraw its ultimatum. Instead, they mobilized the Hegemony Coalition fleet. 300 warships from 5 different species gathered at the edge of human space. It was the largest military force assembled in 20 years. They believed their show of force would make humanity surrender. They believed wrong. When Dae-hyun entered the council chamber on the 3rd day, everything was different. He wore no diplomatic suit this time. Instead, he was dressed in black armor that seemed to drink in the light. The material was smooth and fitted, nothing like the bulky combat suits other species used. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the chest plate and shoulders. Every eye in the chamber turned to watch him walk to the center platform. His footsteps were silent despite the armor. He moved like a shadow given form. I hereby resign my position as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, Dae-hyun announced. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. I am reclaiming my military rank and former designation. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood in his seat. What rank? He called out, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. I am Ghost Commander Dae-hyun, Solar Defense Special Operations Division. He paused, and the chamber fell completely silent. Designation, Reaper 1. The Council has chosen to enforce its ultimatum through military action. Earth considers this an act of war. A Vrelax representative stood up, laughing. One soldier? You send one man to threaten us? Our fleet will crush your pathetic colonies. Dae-hyun smiled. It was not the pleasant diplomatic smile he had worn for months. This smile showed teeth. This smile belonged on something that hunted in the dark. I'm not here to threaten you, he said calmly. I'm here to offer you a chance to surrender. The chamber erupted. Ambassadors shouted in outrage. Some laughed. Others demanded Daehyun be arrested for insolence. The noise was deafening. Only a few beings noticed that every human in the building had quietly left. Cleaning staff, technicians, administrative workers, all gone. Only Daehyun remained. "You have 5 minutes," Daehyun said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "After that, the demonstration begins." "Demonstration of what?" someone shouted. "Of what Earth has been hiding." High Commander Sang-min stood in the observation gallery above the chamber floor. Bora was beside him, her tablet forgotten as she stared at the scene below. Something felt wrong. The air itself seemed charged with tension. "Commander," Bora whispered. "I'm scanning the chamber. Every light in the council chamber went out. Emergency systems kicked in after a moment, bathing everything in dim red light. In the darkness, Daehyun's armor began to glow with soft blue lines. Targeting systems coming online. Weapon systems activating." "I should clarify something." His voice echoed from hidden speakers throughout the chamber. "I'm not alone." The lights came back on. Sang-min's blood turned to ice. Standing throughout the chamber, positioned at every exit and vantage point, were dozens of figures in black armor identical to Daehyun's. They had appeared in complete silence. No alarms, no warnings. The Council's security systems hadn't detected anything. "Ghost Unit 7, Daehyun announced. "My former team. We haven't worked together in 15 years, but some skills you never forget." Bora's hands shook as she checked her scanner. "Commander, I count 47 human signals in the chamber. They bypassed every security system. How is this possible?" One of the armored figures removed her helmet. It was Min Seo, a woman who had been working as a janitor on the station for 3 months. She had cleaned Sang-min's office twice a week. He had never looked at her twice. "We've been here the whole time," Min Seo said, her voice amplified through the chamber's speakers. "Some of us for months, some for years. Earth has had operatives in every major council facility since before you knew we existed." "That's impossible," Hyunwoo stammered. Your security is designed to stop armies and invasions," another human interrupted. This one had been working in the communications department. His name was Kyung-soo. "You scan for weapons. You monitor for large groups. You watch for obvious threats. But you don't see the janitor cleaning your floors. You don't notice the technician fixing your computers. We're invisible because you trained yourselves not to see us." A Mothka admiral in the gallery activated his communicator. "This changes nothing. You have 47 soldiers. We have fleets. We have armies. You had fleets," Kyung-soo corrected. He projected a hologram into the center of the chamber. It showed the Hegemony Coalition Task Force. All 300 ships were drifting powerlessly in space. Small human vessels moved between them like sharks among whales. 17 minutes ago, ghost units across the fleet disabled every ship. No casualties, but every reactor is offline. Every weapon system is dead. Your crews are unharmed, but they're floating in space with no power, no shields, and no way to fight back. The chamber erupted in panic again. Ambassadors shouted into communicators. Military officers tried to reach their ships. No one could believe what they were seeing. "How?" the Vrelax representative demanded. "How did you even find them?" "We've been tracking your fleet movements for years," Daehyun said. "We cracked your military encryption 6 months after we met you. We mapped your supply routes. We studied your tactics. We know where every major warship in the Council is at any given moment." He walked to the center of the platform, and every human soldier in the chamber turned to watch him with perfect synchronization. It was like watching one mind control many bodies. "You've been fighting ceremonial wars for so long that you forgot what real combat looks like," Daehyun continued. "You have rules, protocols. You fight with honor and dignity. That's admirable. It's civilized, but it made you predictable." Another figure removed his helmet. It was Young-ho, who had been working in the station's archives. "On Earth, we didn't have the luxury of honorable combat. When we fought to survive. We learned to cheat, to lie, to strike from shadows and fade away before the enemy knew we were there. We learned that the best battle is one your enemy doesn't know they've already lost. Sang-min finally found his voice. "What do you want?" He called down from the gallery. Dae-hyun looked up at him. For a moment their eyes met, and Sang-min saw something ancient and tired in the human's gaze. This was not a man who enjoyed violence. This was a man who had done terrible things because he had to, and would do them again if necessary. "We want peace," Dae-hyun said simply. "Real peace. Not the peace of subjugation where you dictate terms and we obey. Peace between equals. Withdraw your ultimatum. Accept Earth as a full member of the Council with no restrictions. And in exchange, we'll share our technology, our tactical knowledge, our training methods." "Why would you share that?" asked another ambassador. "Because there are threats in the galaxy you haven't encountered yet," Dae-hyun said. His expression turned grim. "Our deep space probes have detected something at the edge of known space. Ships using technology that makes ours look primitive. They're heading this way, slowly but inevitably." He gestured to the hologram. "When they arrive, you're going to need help. You're going to need people who know how to fight dirty, who can think like predators, who can do what's necessary even when it's not honorable or noble." Min Seo stepped forward. "We didn't come to the stars to conquer. We came hoping to find something better than what we left behind on Earth. But we won't be victims. We won't kneel. If you force us to choose between peace and survival, we'll choose survival every time." The chamber was silent now. Every being present understood that they were at a crossroads. One path led to war with an enemy that had just demonstrated it could cripple their entire fleet without firing a shot. The other path led to an uncertain alliance with a species that scared them. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood slowly. "You could have destroyed us," he said quietly. "Your teams were on our ships. You could have killed everyone." "Yes," Dae-hyun acknowledged. "Why didn't you?" "Because we're trying to be better than what we were." Dae-hyun's voice carried genuine emotion now. "Earth's history is written in blood. We've killed millions of our own kind. We've committed atrocities that haunt us to this day. When we unified, we swore we would never be that species again. We want to build instead of destroy, to create instead of consume." He looked around at all the faces staring at him. "But that doesn't mean we've forgotten how to fight. It means we choose when to fight, and we choose to fight only when threatened or when protecting those who cannot protect themselves." His voice hardened. "You threatened us. You tried to subjugate us. So we showed you what we're capable of. Not to terrify you, but to make you understand that we demand respect." High Commander Sang-min made a decision. He activated his communicator and spoke directly to the military commanders of the Hegemony Coalition. "Stand down. All forces stand down. This operation is over." Protests came through the channel, but Sang-min cut them off. "That's an order. We've lost this confrontation. Accept it with dignity." He closed the channel and looked down at Dae-hyun. The human nodded once, a gesture of respect between soldiers. "The council will need time to discuss this," Sang-min announced. "But I believe we can find a path forward." Dae-hyun smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "That's all we ask. Time to prove we can be allies instead of enemies." 4 weeks after what people were calling the revelation, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The vote was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership with no restrictions. The Hegemony Coalition was dissolved quietly, its member states too embarrassed to mention it publicly. Commander Dae-hyun returned to his diplomatic duties, though now he wore his black armor to council sessions instead of a suit. No one objected. The armor had become a symbol, a reminder of what humanity represented. Peace through strength, friendship through mutual respect. The galaxy was learning to see humans differently now. High Commander Sang-min sat in a small tea house on the station's commercial level. It was a quiet place, decorated in the style of old Earth. Dae-hyun had suggested they meet here, away from the formal conference rooms and observation galleries. Dae-hyun poured tea for both of them. His movements were precise and graceful, the actions of someone who had practiced the ritual many times. It was strange seeing those same hands that had disabled an entire fleet performing such a peaceful task. You knew this would happen, Sang-min said. The confrontation. The demonstration. All of it. We hoped it wouldn't, Dae-hyun replied honestly. We genuinely wanted to join the galactic community peacefully. But yes, we prepared for this outcome. Hope is a beautiful thing, Commander, but hope without preparation is just wishful thinking. Your operatives. Have they been withdrawn? Most of them, yes. Some chose to stay on. Young-ho really does enjoy working in the archives. Min-seo says cleaning is therapeutic after years of combat stress. Dae-hyun smiled slightly. Turns out some of Earth's most dangerous soldiers just wanted quiet lives after the wars ended. Sang-min sipped his tea. It was excellent. I've been authorized to discuss technology sharing. The Council wants to understand your stealth systems, your weapons, your ship designs. We'll share what we can. Some things need to remain classified for now, but we're willing to help upgrade Council defenses. Dae-hyun set down his cup. In exchange, we'd like access to your historical databases, your scientific research, and your cultural archives. That's all? Knowledge? Knowledge is more valuable than weapons, Commander. Weapons only help you survive. Knowledge helps you thrive. Dae-hyun looked at him seriously. Earth spent centuries fighting. We learned how to kill very efficiently, but we never learned how to build lasting peace. We never learned how to create art that wasn't born from pain, or science that wasn't driven by military needs. That's what we hope to learn from the Council. Sang-min understood. Humanity was like a sword that wanted to become a plowshare. They had the strength to fight, but they wanted the wisdom to build. There's something else, Sang-min said quietly. You mentioned a threat at the edge of space. Ships with unknown technology. Is that real? Or was it a story to make us cooperate? Dae-hyun's expression turned grim. It's real. Our deep space probes detected them 8 months ago. We've been monitoring their approach ever since. He pulled out a small device and projected a hologram above the table. It showed the galaxy, with a red marker at its edge indicating the unknown fleet's position. They're moving slowly, but their trajectory is clear. They're heading toward Council space. We estimate 5 years before they arrive, maybe less. What are they? We don't know. Our probes can't get close enough for detailed scans. But the ships are enormous. Some are the size of moons. The energy readings suggest technology far beyond anything we or the Council possess. Dae-hyun zoomed in on the hologram. This isn't exploration, Commander. The formation is too precise. The speed too deliberate. Whatever they are, they're coming here with purpose. Sang-min felt cold. Does the Council know? A few high-ranking officials now. We briefed them after the confrontation, but we can't announce it publicly yet. It would cause panic, mass evacuations, economic collapse. Dae-hyun closed the hologram. That's why we needed to establish our position in the Council first. When this threat arrives, we need the galaxy unified. We need everyone working together. Is that why you told me? Why you're telling me all this? Yes, I need allies in the Council leadership. People who understand what's at stake. People who can help prepare without causing chaos. Dae-hyun looked at him intently. You're a soldier, Commander. You understand that sometimes the scary ally is better than the unknown enemy. Sang-min nodded slowly. What do you need from the Krellian Dominion? Help us convince the Council to take defense seriously. Start joint military exercises. Share technology between species. Build stronger communication networks. Create actual war plans instead of ceremonial battle protocols. Dae-hyun leaned forward. Most importantly, help us build trust. When that unknown fleet arrives, we can't be fighting each other. We need to stand together. The Council won't like it. They prefer their comfortable hierarchy. Then we'll need to change the Council. Dae-hyun smiled slightly. Revolution doesn't always come from the barrel of a gun, Commander. Sometimes it comes from quiet conversations in tea houses. They talked for another hour planning and strategizing. By the time they finished, the foundations of a new galactic defense initiative had been laid. It would take time to implement, years probably, but it was a start. As they prepared to leave, Sang-min asked one final question. The Reaper. What does it really mean to you? Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and tired. During Earth's wars, I killed a lot of people. Hundreds directly, thousands indirectly through my actions. I walked through places where death waited around every corner. And I walked out alone while my enemies didn't. They called me the Reaper because death followed wherever I went. He looked out the window at the stars beyond. But a Reaper isn't just something that kills. A Reaper is something that harvests. It cuts down the old growth so new things can grow. It clears the field for the next planting season. He turned back to Sung Min. I like to think that's what I'm doing now. Clearing away the old systems, the old fears, the old hatreds, making room for something better. That's very poetic. My wife was a poet, Dae-hyun said with a sad smile. Before she died in the Unification Wars, she used to say that even the darkest things could have beautiful purposes if you looked at them the right way. Sang-min didn't know what to say to that, so he simply bowed, a gesture of respect that crossed species boundaries. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in small but important ways. Human technology started appearing in Council defense systems. Joint training exercises revealed new tactics that combined human cunning with alien strength. Trade agreements became more equitable. Diplomatic relations improved. Bora, working as Sang-min's analyst, noticed something interesting. Commander, look at this data. Military incidents across Council space have dropped by 40% in the last 3 months. Why? Sang-min asked. Because everyone knows humanity is watching. The minor powers are afraid to start conflicts because they don't know if Earth has operatives in their systems. The major powers are too busy upgrading their defenses to bother with territorial disputes. She smiled slightly. Fear of a common threat has done what centuries of diplomacy couldn't. It's united the galaxy. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Some species resented humanity's rapid rise to prominence. Others feared what humans might do with their influence. But even the critics had to admit that the galaxy was safer now than it had been in decades. Dae-hyun continued his diplomatic work, traveling between worlds, making friends and building alliances. He was invited to military academies to teach tactics, to universities to discuss Earth's history, to cultural centers to share human art and music. People still called him the Reaper, but the name had changed meaning. It was no longer a title of fear. It was a title of respect, of acknowledgement that this man had seen the worst of what war could be and chosen peace anyway. 5 years passed quickly. The unknown fleet drew closer. Long-range scans provided more details, and all of them were troubling. The ships were massive. Their weapons were powerful. Their numbers were vast, but the galaxy was ready now. Thanks to human preparation and Council resources, a defensive network had been established. Joint fleets patrolled the borders. Communication systems could relay warnings across hundreds of light years in minutes. Evacuation plans existed for every major world. On the day the unknown fleet entered Council space, Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Unity. Beside him stood Sang-min, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Joint Defense Forces. Representatives from a dozen species worked at stations throughout the IE bridge. Contact in 30 minutes, an officer reported. Dae-hyun activated the communication channel that linked every military vessel in the galaxy. His voice was calm and steady. This is Ghost Commander Dae-hyun to all Allied forces. We don't know what's coming. We don't know if they're hostile or just passing through. But whatever happens, we face it together. Every species, every world, every soldier. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Humanity learned something during our darkest years. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being willing to do whatever it takes to protect the people you love, about never giving up even when the odds are impossible, about standing together when everything tries to pull you apart.